Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. We move on from the NFC South, which was a mess, to the AFC South, which is electric.
Maybe.
I mean, I think it's electric. I mean, you got a lot of really cool, fun, positive storylines here. There's 3 second-year quarterbacks.
Yeah,
some
probabilities.
New regimes, yeah, some good coaches. This is a good division. I'm really fired up to break this down, and really kind of interesting teams and interesting places. Just a ton to dig into. And we start with the expected 4th place finisher, your Tennessee Titans. Just get right into it. We don't need to spend any time. Euro, thankfully, is over. Wimbledon, thankfully, is over. The Tour de France is pretty much over. So we can, this is just all NFL now, except for the Olympics.
I did have a nice ending. I like to see England have their heart ripped out. Sorry to my English. It's just it's good for the content on Twitter. Plus I did do I didn't realize Joker was gonna be such a big favorite in the semis. I thought that was gonna be minus 350, 400. So I joked about doing a Joker money line, Spain to lift, Argentina to lift parlay.
Treble, yeah.
A treble, so I did that. So that was nice, although I was kind of not enjoying the Copa final, and I didn't feel like staying up. And it's oh man, just score here. Just either put me out of my misery or I didn't want to go to penalty. And it ended up going a lot of extra time. I did doze off for a little bit, woke up, and it was still a little 0-0. So we're done with that. Congrats to Carlos Alcaraz, to Spain, to Argentina, to Sergio and the Fireballs for getting it done and on the
double playoff, Andy. Double playoff.
I know, and we joke, and yes, a lot of the players are not that great, but that's a legit course. Sure. It's nice to see him because Sergio has been abhorrent in big tournaments basically since he got his win 5 years ago now. So hopefully he can figure something out. It's fun when good players are good. And then also to our women's winner, whose name is escaping me now.
Barbora Krejcikova. Yeah.
I was going to say this. I watched more of that than the men's final, and I can't think of Barbara's name.
Yeah. The women's final, I enjoyed it on a 10 out of 10 relative to the last 2 women's Wimbledon finals, which were just disasters. Ons Jabeur losing from a set up against Rybakina, and then whatever the hell happened last year against Marketa Vondrousova. This was at least just a very fun and entertaining, compelling final. Didn't see it coming, but cool for Krejcikova to get a second slam. And then Alcaraz. It's over. I don't really know. It's over. I don't really know what the U.S. Open holds, but now that Sinner and Alcaraz have gotten compelling, clean kills of Djokovic on his 2 preferred surfaces, Melbourne and Wimbledon, I don't think he's got another one in him. I think that's pretty much it. And it was an amazing run. It was cool to be a part of it. It was cool to bet on it a bunch of times, and it is over.
Most stressful, yeah. Besides, obviously the third leg being Argentina and it going to deep in extra time, the most stressful sweat I had was with the dirty, filthy, disgusting individuals who slime their way around the politics channels in the deep dive Discord. How many tabs? I wonder how many tabs. Yeah, so we had Bookmaker, Bovada, BetOnline, Smarkets, Poly Markets, and at least Predict 2 other. Predict It wasn't great. That was moving around too much, but it's just refreshing 9 tabs, constantly waiting for the Veep stakes to sort itself out as auto movers were hitting and weird, probably bots were hitting some stuff as RFK Jr.'s price went out of whack. There was crazy steam and 5 different candidates this morning. Eventually the Vance money got home. Thank you to Brad for putting me on that earlier, but not early enough, I guess, because I didn't have the huge. Some people had 80-1 tickets in there on Jamie Vance. Yeah. So congrats to anybody who made a little money this morning on the Veep stakes. It's about as much politics as I want to talk.
Thank you. Yeah, let's talk Tennessee Titans. And speaking of politics, you had a little bit of a political battle here between the GM and the coach last year that ended in the coach's job becoming vacant. And
I've forgotten about that part. I read about that a little more yesterday as I was boning up. Forgot about the Skunk Gate. Are we going to call it that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's what they've called it in the mainstream media, the Skunk Gate. But I didn't realize, and I read this in two different spots, how mad she was losing to Houston because that's where she's from. Amy Adams Strunk. Is it Strunk? Am I even saying it?
Strunk?
Strunk.
I think it's Strunk.
Making up a name. Either way, the billionaire heiress that owns the Tennessee Titans. So family's from Houston. She didn't love losing to them. She didn't love the, vision that Vrabel laid out for the front office where he was a part of it and somebody he wanted to elevate. And she just said, the hell with this. We're doing Carthen. We're doing what I want. We're getting a new coach. We're going my way, which is fair play. You own the team.
Yeah, absolutely right. It was an interesting, weird, like the last couple of years, really, for this Titans team that found itself in a little bit of purgatory after Tannehill took them to the 1 seed and then ultimately flamed out in the playoffs a couple of years ago. And they didn't really have the answers at quarterback. They drafted Will Levis in the second round last year. They needed to get Will Levis some reps. The major themes and stories about the 2023 Tennessee Titans was they had the weakest offensive line in the NFL, and it was by margin. And that really kind of didn't give you an opportunity to make one more run with Tannehill, and it didn't really give you a great opportunity to develop a young rookie quarterback who had a couple injuries. So it was a weird transition year for the Titans. Vrabel loses his job after having kind of seeming like one of the more
stable.
He seemed like one of the more like he had his hands very fixed on that job, and then bang, he's gone. Rand Carthon wins the power battle in the in the C-suite there, and he hires Brian Callahan, who brings his dad over with him to fix the major problem with the offensive line. And it was also a weird year because the Titans felt like they had a bunch of holes, they had a bunch of needs, they had a bunch of weaknesses. Their wide receiving core stunk. They've missed on a bunch of high draft picks. And they spent money this offseason, buddy. Ooh, baby. They went and they got who's the best wide receiver free agent in the market? Calvin Ridley. We'll take him. We really need a corner.
He's like 26 years old, right?
We really need a corner. Let's get is there like a top 5 guy we could trade for? Like, L'Jarius Sneed, we'll take him. We'll pay him. Like, it was a big kind of immediate step in the direction that we've seen a lot of these franchises go when they have a rookie quarterback, which is, let's spend our money on talent all around him and see if we can make this happen. Well, we're gonna go with the win with a rookie, win with a QB on a rookie deal kind of mentality, and let's see it. Let's see what Will Levis has. Let's see if they've put the right talent in the right spots on this team to really surprise people, because expectations are low, man. This is not a team that's expected to make the playoffs this year. This is not a team that's expected to have a big turnaround. But if the talent that they got, and just in general, the development and the kind of improvement of a couple of weak systems happens, then they're going to be a team nobody really wants to play. Because they do have some good players. So it's a really interesting, difficult handicap, I have to tell you, for this Titans team.
Both of these teams were very tough. I've found that I like continuity, even though we've seen, the same players can put up very different results from year to year. But some of these teams who've made big moves, it makes it really difficult to rate the team group by group, as we've been trying to do. So anyone who missed last week, so we've changed formats a little. We're going to go through the 8 groups / coaches / positional skill areas across the offense and defense, go over ratings and argue a little. And I think we're gonna have some different numbers today.
Oh yeah.
Just because like I went back and forth, and you can use player ratings all you want, but when you have coaching turnover and player turnover at multiple areas on the same side of the ball, it makes it really difficult to see like, was this guy good and or bad because of this, that, or the other thing, or who he was playing with, or he was on a different team. Very, very difficult. I think I ended up about where I thought I would in the end, which is funny how when you average it all, you're probably high on a little, low on a little, and it gets to the spot where I've had my teams, which I have my end of year power ratings from last year for these teams that I sat on from week 17 and pulled forward, and I've been just like glancing back at after I do it. And it's interesting how, it's like, well, I do think this team should be a little better, and I'm a little higher than that. So it's kind of nice that it's falling into place this way.
Okay. I guess as I look at sort of the 2023 Titans, and they finished 6-11, which was obviously enough of a disappointment to fire the coach. But they probably should have been worse, right? Like 6 wins is a little flattering. And
they played in close games for being a bad team, and I think it was it was week 8, I believe. I think they had a week 7 bye where they were 2-4. Said, all right, we're done with Tanny. We got to see what we have here in the youngster. And then from there on out, that's where I was with you with Vrabel. And I guess we underplayed the front office friction, because I thought you get hey, he's been here for a while and he's had a lot of success and he's a good coach, and he's being forced to roll a young quarterback out there for a big part of the season. Like, that kind of gets you the pass. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, that's just a free year. Like, you get one more free year no matter how bad it is. And they probably overachieved at times. Yeah. So it is still it was a little jarring that happened the way it did. And it was kind of a bumpy season, because you saw 1 or 2 games where Levis was really good, but then you saw like 3 or 4 where he was very much lost and playing, not just playing poorly, but it's like, well, they might have lost the game anyway, but he definitely lost them those games.
Yeah, right. And I guess kind of as you look at sort of how they performed EPA per play type of stuff, offense and defense, we kind of highlighted, their biggest issue was the offensive line, but like they weren't that bad on offense. Their offense was fine. Their defense was like really bad. And that was a huge surprise, because that had been sort of what they were built on, was, kind of surprisingly good defensive play, well-coordinated defense, and just in general, tough to, they were a pass funnel, but it was tough to beat them. And then they all of a sudden the floor, just completely fell out. And some of that was injury related in terms of secondary pieces. Some of it was just the way the team was built. They had a terrible pass rush. They had no coverage, and, they really just couldn't get off the field. I think ultimately, if you want to point to, well, then it was a worthy firing of Vrabel. And, Vrabel did a bunch of pretty old school things in terms of in-game decision-making and stuff that really kind of probably cost the Titans some success. Like, I specifically remember their home game where they lost to the Ravens in the playoffs, and thinking like, wow, Vrabel owns this. Like, some of the decisions he made in that game were inexcusable. But he had Ryan Tannehill as a quarterback, and Ryan Tannehill, by the way, is currently unemployed. Like, apparently he was done. He's done. Nobody is going to give him a shot. And we've officially turned the page here, but they were in general, like through Vrabel's tenure, they were they were just generally a team you bet unders on. They were a team you backed as a dog. And none of that really kind of manifests last year. They covered 8 of their 17 games. So it was 7-7 over or under. Like, the market had this team nailed pretty well as not very good. And other than the one just absolutely absurd win they had at Miami as 13.5 point dogs, there wasn't really anything to write home about last year. Like, I don't have a lot I really want to talk about their season. Like, they lost the games they were supposed to lose. They won some games that they weren't supposed to win. But overall, it was just kind of a little bit of a lost season. Now we start over. Is there anything about the 2023 campaign that you wanted to point out?
No, I think we covered most of it. It was it was a 6-win season where you got rid of the coach. You did a sweeping changes at the coaching. You went out and did a bunch of stuff in the free agent market and probably improved. Like, once I get to the end of this, I'm I'm a little more bullish than I guess I thought I would be on this team.
Yeah, same. And I think that's just because like some of the players that they retained, I like, and some of the guys they got, I'm like, okay, well, they're good. So I think it's just in general, it's a little bit of a head scratch. And I guess if you had higher confidence that Will Levis really was going to make a year 2 leap, then you would maybe have a little bit different. You'd view this team as exactly the same, maybe better than the Colts, because there's still a lot of questions the Colts have to answer. But let's talk about their offseason then. Because they accidentally won 6 games, they didn't have like the best draft capital in the world, and they were sitting ducks in that anyone knew that if they wanted to, they knew they were going to take an offensive lineman first round.
The world, I never did really see a mock that didn't have just Latham or the other guy there.
Joe Alt. Yeah, I was expected that Joe Alt
it was Alt for a long time, and then it pivoted over to Latham for most of the mocks once we got closer. But yeah, it was always like, hey, we need to go out and get another offensive lineman. We just did this. I think, last year Skoronsky, but like it's a big need. And like you said, they spent the money on some free agents. They got another nose tackle, kind of inside guy, Tavondre Sweat. They've got some depth beyond that, but a couple of guys that probably can contribute right away. And then, like you mentioned, Calvin Ridley, splash-ish wide receiver, a little on the older side. You got more help for your offensive line in Cushenberry and Sadiq Charles, and then 2 corners. One is really good. Like you have a legit corner one that trade.
Awuzie is good.
Awuzie is
Snead is top 5, bona fide.
So Snead is for sure a hardcore CB1, and then Awuzie is definitely a nice piece there too. So you took a couple of big weaknesses in your offensive line, and there was nice parts to the wide receiver core, but it definitely needed some help. And then obviously the secondary. So 3 weaknesses turned into possible strengths, possibly you. And then other stuff, I'm not super excited about Kenneth Murray, but maybe a change in scenery can help. Some other depth pieces. Derrick Henry was not running on empty. I don't know. He might have.
Oh yeah, moving on from Derrick Henry is a huge one because Tyjae Spears had flashes of being the guy. In fact, Spears is probably like weirdly still a little underrated as to how good he's going to be in the system. I doubt Tony Pollard has much of a role.
I don't think Derrick Henry goes and has a bad season, but where they were and what it would have worked out financially, you had to cut bait there. And Spears,
paying a wide receiver, but I guess here's kind of the key, right? They had to go pay these guys. They had to trade draft capital to get Snead because the guys they drafted in the previous years did not work out. Treylon Burks was not able to step in as even a wide receiver 2, let alone a wide receiver 3, which is why you had to go pay Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd. I think the fact that you had to go get L'Jarius Snead instead of developing the guy you drafted in Caleb Farley, that's a sign. That was a bad indication. And I think as you kind of look at sort of the structural failures of the vision of the previous regime, it was all in drafting and developing the talent. And so they had to spend this year to make up for that. And thankfully, because they have a rookie quarterback, or they have a quarterback who is probably, I got to imagine he's on the friendliest deal of any expected starter this year because he is a 2nd-round pick. Like they're probably
there's some give and take there. So he's on a 2nd-round deal, so it's cheaper, but down the road, if he turns out good, you have to. It's one of those things where you don't have the 5th-year option, but at the same time, if it clicks this year or next year, you're moving to a 2nd deal anyway. You're starting to work on that as you go. So
yeah, I don't think
you don't have as much of a runway, and like you said, you're paying him less because he's a 2nd-round pick at this point. So yeah, offseason was a plus for sure. Like you said, they probably made a lot of right moves, and it was one where they had good draft capital to start with. They had some money to spend, and they put it in the right spot because we see this a lot where everybody and their sister can read 100 articles like, hey, what's this team's draft needs? And we use, it's not a euphemism, it's more of just a generalization. We use the word draft needs because the draft is so fun to cover and so many people want to read about it, but it's needs, just needs. And you should roll free agency into that as well. Obviously, some of that comes earlier, but you go through the free agent area and the draft, and some of these teams come out the other side and be like, what the fuck were you doing? Why was that the plan? Like, I get you improved, but those weren't the areas you needed to improve in. And maybe you're happy with it. Maybe you rated your players and where you think their development is at differently than I did. But boy, there's a few teams that every year leave you scratching their head. And as much as I've been down on Tennessee for the past couple of years, and I'm probably still not a huge Levis believer as far as a high ceiling, this was a very good offseason, I think.
I think so too. You want to know a funny wrinkle? Okay. Andy, Will Levis is the blank highest paid quarterback in the AFC South.
Well, Trevor's getting paid a lot.
Yes, he is.
And I don't know how those deals work out. Like, Richardson is a first rounder.
Mm-hmm. So he's higher.
5th.
8th.
Oh, God.
All four backups in the AFC South are getting paid more than Will Levis, including his own backup, Mason Rudolph.
Flacco gets a good deal. Rudolph gets a good deal.
Mac Jones, who's backing up Trevor Lawrence, is getting more money.
Who's the Houston backup? Why can't I think of that right now?
Case Keenum.
Wow, that just makes sense.
How crazy is that?
That is
He's
true. Yes,
hell of a piece in his division.
We can just end the podcast now. That's a highlight.
Amazing. Anyway, yes. So he is the 52nd
definition of a team-friendly deal.
Yes, I would say so. And yeah, hey, they spent all those resources. I mean, and they got good players. I just don't know if they have enough of them, and I don't know exactly if this bounces, and I don't know if Will Levis is any good. So who the fuck knows if they're going to be good this year?
Yeah, they have a big range, and Will Levis is at the center of it, moving in one way or the other.
Right. I mean, we don't really know much about this guy other than like the handful of highlight-worthy clips he put on tape last year, because there was lots of stuff that was just like, is this because he doesn't get it, or is it just because he just doesn't have anything around him in terms of talent outside of Hopkins, who was very spotty, not consistent last year. So, this is like just a completely revamped, skill position group, a completely revamped secondary, and those, outside of the offensive line, those were their two biggest problems. And so, if they can solve the offensive line through the coaching change and the offensive line coach and the investment in draft capital in the offensive line, and if they can solve the skill position group by spending on players with a pulse, and they solve the secondary group by getting good cornerbacks, they might be good if Will Levis is average. And so I'm really like kind of stuck on what to do with these guys, honestly. And everybody in the AFC South has some pop, and I think the Titans are just being generally completely overlooked because they were they're the least exciting of the quarterbacks. I don't know.
Getting way ahead of everything, I think maybe the bet to make is just Houston to win the division. No.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah,
where it's like, man, all of these teams. Yeah, it's a bad number, I think, at this point. And they're very good. They have a lot of good players, but let's see them do it again now that we have the tape. And then every other team in the division has this big upside to them. Where I'm kind of tempted with that, just not trying to decide which of my favorite kids here and just going with the fading Houston, taking the no in the division. But we'll get into that a little more on Wednesday when we talk some Houston. We'll look at the prices at the end of the show here too for Tennessee.
Okay.
What do you rate?
I've tipped my cards. Like, Levis is a who fucking knows for me. Like, I really don't. Like, where are you at in terms of, are you kind of expecting basically like a carryover from way you evaluated him as a prospect? Are you looking at the tape and the numbers from last year and giving them meaningful weight? If you just kind of look at, kind of the key statistics, like non-garbage time EPA per play among quarterbacks, like, it's not great. It's not great. But again, like, he was in as bad of a situation as Justin Fields was as a rookie, And so I don't, I don't obviously Fields never got there, but Will Levis's dot is it's right next to Deshaun Watson's. it's kind of in line with some other guys that I'm perfectly fine kind of giving a clean slate this year, and particularly if they have talent around them. So I don't know. Is he just like he's got a big arm. He's got some general kind of hang in there in the pocket and deliver and get smashed. That scares me about it from a longevity standpoint. But he's got some.
And that's I almost wanted to go like re-record a podcast with you because we went over and over with the Falcons stuff, with the Kirk Cousins stuff, and what we're trying to accomplish here with these previews. And it's fun to talk about like teams doing a really good job of team building and roster construction. But the main piece we're trying to put together is a team rating for this year to use to gamble with.
Yeah.
So that's where it's like, like, I get that like there could be some very bad outcomes with Cousins, but for this year, I don't give a shit what happens, in 2026 with that contract. And I'm kind of in the same spot. Like I'm happy with where they're at, but at the same time, I am forced to put my number at the bottom of the range because we saw some very bad tape from this guy at times. We basically saw 2 games where he looked average to above average at all. And then as much as we want to get excited about Callahan and offensive coordinator Nick Holes, who he won't be calling the plays. It'll be Callahan's call. I looked up Holes, didn't find a whole lot on him. He came over from Jacksonville. He's a passing game coordinator, so he has some familiarity with Ridley, I guess. Before that, he was in college. The only thing I have on him is he won the Regiment Award when he played for Colorado in college for the greatest contribution with the least recognition, as he was Mason Crosby's holder for 3 years. Good job for him. But Callahan hasn't called plays either. He wasn't play caller. So I've got a guy stepping into, and yes, he helped build game plans, and he was a big part of that. But a guy stepping in, implementing a new offense with a guy that we haven't seen much, and a lot of what ifs. So there's a big arrow pointing up. And this range could get towards, middle of the league, maybe even better. But for now, it's a 2.5.
Okay. Yeah, I'm at 3. And so what I'm holding against, I guess, kind of, again, completely recognizing that I might rewrite the entire book on Levis after we see a couple of games of him with good protection, or at least average protection, and good skill set around, skill group around him. Like we could see something very different. But as I kind of broke down 2023 for him, he was willing to take the hits, surely, but his kind of decision making in the pocket was not great. His accuracy was meh. His physical tool set was possibly impressive, but not always utilized correctly. And he preyed on defensive mistakes, but he didn't create a ton against clean defenses, from what I can tell you. And all that can be fixed. And you're not even expecting a rookie quarterback to be able to do a lot of that stuff. So who the heck knows? But you're at 2.5 for QBOC. I'm at 3. And I think it was one of those where you just kind of have to start low. I don't think you can realistically come in with a big number there.
I'll just make a quick adjustment. I'll put this at a 6. Let's say top of his range, Callahan works out. This is a 9 to 10 win team probably at that point. So their ceiling is definitely getting a playoff spot, but their floor, their floor where I'm having to put them at right now is 4 points worse than a neutral.
No pressure either though. New regime. So, you're not paying your quarterback. Next year is the year that it kind of all comes due one way or the other, I would expect, unless they're so bad that they have the first overall pick, in which case you replace them. But 3 for me. Where are you on skill group?
This was a very tough one too, because these are some good names, but this is an old wide receiver room at this point.
Yes. It is.
That is a little scary. And we didn't, like you said, we didn't see the best out of Hopkins last year.
Yeah.
Ridley's on the wrong side of 30. Boyd is great, but he's not young. I'd give him a bonus for being deep. Like Burks, yeah, it hasn't worked out, but that's a nice piece to have as a backup. Same with Westbrook Keeney.
Yeah.
Tight ends, the tight end room isn't great.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about young upside, Okongwo's got he's he was a 4th round pick 2022. He can play. He's a player. Fine. young upside with Okongwo, young upside with Spears. But the wide receiver room is old and maybe fragile.
It's good. It's deep. It's old. Ivan Okonkwo is just average, maybe slightly above with, a limited ceiling. The Derrick Henry move, like you said, was right. And then I like Spears a lot. He rated out well in anything I found. I like Pollard too, but I don't like Pollard as I think we found that out as the goal line guy, as the single back, as a 3-down person. So the combination of Pollard and Spears is probably pretty good. So this was I vacillated back and forth between 5.5 and 6 and landed on 5.5 here.
Okay. I'm at 6, and I am erring on the side of positive because of you kind of did what I would always say to do, which is get guys that have different skill sets. Like there's not lots of redundancy. There's not lots of redundancy in this group. Nice Everybody can do something different, which is nice. And I mean, it's kind of funny because you do have the potential for this to not go good, right? Not go well. You have Hopkins, who probably can't get open anymore, but can catch everything, and you have Ridley, who can get open but can't catch anything. Like that, if you could just kind of merge the best skill set of those two players, you have like wide receiver 3 in the league. But there's a chance that that there are some home run opportunities that Ridley doesn't exactly connect on, even though he can get behind the defense. And then similarly, it's going to be tough for Hopkins, I'm assuming, to create space at this point. But again, like if he's not the only guy out there with a pulse on the the wide receivers, maybe he's not as well covered this year. It's tough to say. And Boyd is a little bit of a mystery as far as what exactly his role is, but he's big body. He's going to help. Certainly can provide some pop, because one would assume we're going to get a lot of 11 personnel out of the Brian Callahan system, because that's just what his DNA is in terms of where he comes from. So a lot of 3 wide receivers out there. And I guess if there's anyone that I'm like especially excited to see with a bit of an expanded role in this offense, it's certainly Tajay Spears, because that guy, again, he had some moments where it was like, boy, like he can very clearly, in my opinion, take over as sort of the feature guy in the absence of Tankito. What was Derrick Henry's?
Tractor
Cedo. Thank you.
Yeah.
Tractor Cedo.
I think the combination.
He's not a Tractor Cedo. He's a very different style player, but he's more of the modern player. Yeah. So I'm at 6 here. 5.5.
One guy too to kind of watch for. They did draft someone later, 5th, 6th round, Jaquan Jackson, Ed Reed's nephew. Fast, 4.4 guy.
Ed Reed's nephew?
Yeah. 4.4 guy, fast, could be a decent slot player. Missed some time to injury, but he was like a gadget guy too, where they'd give him the ball sometimes, even though he's a little undersized. He played at Tulane. I think that probably makes a difference who you're playing, but he's someone that I don't know, some of the beat guys and some of the stuff I've been reading, they're excited for him to maybe slide in to that, that 4th spot and get some more time in the slot.
Yeah. Okay.
He didn't move my number to 6 though.
Okay. Well, you're at 5.5. I'm at 6. O-line is tricky. Last year, in hindsight, they got a 1. And this year there's no continuity, none. And there are still a couple of guys that I'm like, okay. Nicolas Petit-Frere, I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that in French sense, is the right tackle. Don't really know what to expect there. Sadiq Charles, maybe. Yeah, Sadiq Charles, okay. Cushenberry is a nice center. Skoronski probably has the talent to do well at left guard, and JC Latham probably can develop into a permanent solution at the left tackle position. But these guys all have questions and need help, and it's going to take time, and the continuity is a problem. What say you?
The outside of Cushenberry, it's all question marks. Like,
Yeah.
J.C. Latham was a top 10 pick, and he was great, but not all these Bama guys work out. He's never played the left side. He's a right tackle, so they're instantly putting him next to Skoronski, who struggled. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. And at the same time, like Skoronski was a pick that was expected to click. He's going to have to take a step forwards. Sadiq Charles is backup / maybe probably competition. The right guard, there could be like 4 different guys that end up starting there, including Radens, who may be the right tackle if they don't start Ferrer there. So like the whole right side is in flux. You get this Brunskill, like you said, Sadiq Charles, Radens, Petit Ferrer too. He had the shoulder injury and a gambling suspension last year.
Did he?
There's another guy, Leroy. I think he started the year on the gambling suspension. Then he had a shoulder injury as well. Leroy Watson is another guy that'll compete for the right tackle. None of those guys, all the guys are named for right tackle and right guard. None of those guys have good ratings.
No.
So the right side, no matter what, is probably going to be pretty weak. You have a very good center, probably one of the best run blocking center, pass blocking centers, and then again, question marks with youth on the left side. So I went high on this. And and to be fair, as Birdie's pointing out, Dillard was a abject disaster. Like Latham could have a pretty bad year, but Andre Dillard was like,
at least he's not part of the picture.
But Andre Dillard wasn't like top 40 when it came to left tackles.
Yeah.
So that was, I think somebody even used the word abject disaster that put that on. Skoronski did have the appendix thing, so maybe I need to give him a little bit of benefit of the doubt. But I highlighted this: the left tackles that played last year gave up a 15% pressure rate. The league average was 6.5. Dead last. So Latham has to be an upgrade at some point. I gave him a 3. And that's just based on the fact that, like, you upgraded a left tackle, a decent upgrade at center, and you have some depth. And I'm probably on the high end.
I'm at 2 because I just need to see it. I mean, young guys, and again, like, I'm at 2, but perfectly happy to move this quickly if we see Callahan.
And like you said, you were probably a 1 last year if you had to do the same system.
Oh yeah, for sure, no question. Or if they brought back the same unit from last year and we were going forward predictions, maybe a half point. Like it would have been the lowest and very, very low expectations. This one I'm giving a 2 with upside if Callahan does his thing. Which is to say,
I didn't
like,
even mention Callahan.
You think are we blowing him up a little bit though? Because like he didn't really work all that much magic in Cincy, or at least not as much as I was expecting. Right?
I mean, they had a bit of a bear cupboard for a couple of years as well too. It did, so maybe that helps with the the left side with the 2 younger players. But Callahan was, I forgot about that. I had like a 2.5 and gave it a half-point bump for Callahan. Bringing up Hall of Fame offensive line coach, you should get something out of it.
I'm worried a little bit about the old coaches and kind of how we're anchored to expecting good things from them, like Zimmer and who's the other guy?
Belichick.
Fangio, right? like Belichick. I mean, like at some point, like, your time runs out in terms of the innovation you're bringing to the, to the job. And I mean, I'm definitely willing to entertain the idea that Bill Callahan coaches this unit to be well above their performance level from last year, and it is at at minimum replacement level, which I would say is more like 3.5 ish as opposed to 5. But they could get to 5 if they hit on Latham, and if Skoronski and Latham lock down the left side. And I think that's probably what I'm going to be looking for the most, which is pressure stats from the first handful of games that they play this year.
Yep.
Okay.
Fair, very fair. So defense? I have a 30, almost a 34th percentile offense.
34th percentile, 35th for me.
So we're pretty close there.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot will come down to the left side of the line gelling early and often, and the quarterback play with the upgraded weapons for sure.
Yeah, going to be projecting a lot of them scoring 17 to 20-ish points this season, unless they're playing a bad defense or a defense with no pass rush.
Which leads us to another new coach.
Yeah, what do you?
Denard
Yeah, what's your read on
Wilson.
Denard? Is this the coordinator? Is this the principal coordinator you know the least about in football? Because it's close for me.
It is, but at the same time, every stop he's had, it seemed like he had a hand in some success.
Okay.
You know, he was the defensive backs coach. Kind of got Kyle Hamilton where he's at.
Yeah,
he's
sure.
Probably one of the best safeties. Not probably, he's one of the best safeties in the league.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're going to give McDonald a lot of credit, but he was a part of that defense that, where did somebody said that? I didn't even think this was like publicized much, but they called it the defensive triple crown on Wikipedia. They led the league in least points allowed, most sacks, and most takeaways.
Oh, wow.
Which is obviously rare, but good job for them. And then before that, he was with Philadelphia, where he was, again, defensive backs coach, passing coordinator coach. He worked with Bradbury, CJ, GJ, and that whole crew. Like, that was a good team. Before that, he was with the Jets back when Jamal Adams was good. That was a good secondary with some decent pieces. Like, he's had success, but we've never seen him, lead an entire defense like this. So I guess I'm giving a slight bump to the possibilities of a good secondary because that's where his expertise is. But for now, it's neutral to negative overall because it's very new for him to be a full-ass defensive coordinator.
Okay. That's interesting.
He did. I did have one quote from one of the, I believe it was a beat reporter article. He said they're going to prioritize press man coverage on the outside while playing an attacking style defense up front. So we always talk about how secondary and pass rush are so interconnected and interlinked. And we see teams try to do this where they try to run a lot of press and they don't have the corners for it. And it turns out bad for everybody. Like, yes. Oh, your guys can't beat these wide receivers, so this is going to suck. Whereas, and we'll get to these a little bit, but when we already talked about Snead, we talked about signing Chidobe Awuzie, like they probably have the corners and the secondary to play press. And that's going to be one of those rising tides lifts all boats if it works out, because there's some decent pieces up front too. And this pass rush, even this run stop could get a lot better because of that.
They're going to need to get a lot better. And yeah. I don't like what they did in terms of putting together a team for run stuff. And I have them expected at a 3. Where are you?
I'm a 4.5 on run stop.
Okay. The highest graded player I had for them on defense last year, as far as tackling goes, was Azeez Al-Shaair, and he is now a Texan. The highest rated player on their defense for me overall is Jeffrey Simmons. He only played 12 games last year. He's still 26, so he's a young man. He should have like a huge obvious bounce back if he can, if he's fully healthy this year. Do you have any information or insight on the Jeffrey Simmons injury recovery timeline expectations? What's the deal here?
Sounding like on schedule. I think we're going to be fine.
Okay, so no red flags for you for Jeffrey.
I don't think there's a big red flag. And yeah, Simmons isn't what he once was, but he's still very good.
He's young too.
I know, but some of these guys, they just have a quicker arc. Like we're going to talk about the Colts. There's a linebacker we're going to talk about.
That's true.
A little weaker, and obviously the second level's kind of weak. When you're signing Kenneth Murray and you're excited about it.
Arden Key and Kenneth Murray are two players that I have never especially thought.
I have Arden Key as a decent enough on the pass rush, but yeah, run stop for both of those guys is not good. Losing, like you said, losing Azeez Al-Shaair, losing Danico
Autry too, yeah,
not good. But Harold Landry, Simmons, this Tavondre Sweat, he's just a huge freaking dude. But it's a rookie, so it's an unknown at that point. So you have good players, but it's not all put together properly at this point. Pass rush could be okay.
Yeah, Sebastian Joseph Day.
Yeah,
like they brought in a bunch of guys who really couldn't run stop on their last stops. Which I kind of am like, huh? Oh boy! Like, how is this? Is just going to be? They're going to go from the world's most obvious pass funnel to the world's most obvious run funnel.
Yeah, and so Tavondre Sweat probably should have gone higher. He had some character stuff. He had the DUI slide. I don't know. Like that could have been a first round pick. He was pretty good at Texas. He was next to that other Murphy, the other Byron Murphy. If he works out and as like a, what do you call it, clog up guy, like it improves greatly. And you got a guy, Roger McCreary. I think this is one of the reasons too. I wasn't super high on the first two levels. But McCreary's a good inside box guy, slot guy. He rated out pretty well in run defense. And then just who they have for, their secondary additions, I'm fine being a little higher. But yeah, McCreary rated out well. Tavondre Sweat hopefully rates out well. And yeah, I'm below average, but I was a little higher on him.
Yeah, I'm just looking at a bunch of guys who I'm like, tackling's going to be a problem. They're going to need Roger McCreary to be a good tackler in the second at the end of the secondary. Similarly with Snead,
Simmons, Sweat, McCreary, like you need them to be good, not good, very good. For
you need Simmons to be an all-pro to help elevate the rest of this group. Yeah. For both pass rush and run stop, but especially the run stop.
Elijah Molden as well. He was a corner that transitioned to safety. He was decent as a box safety as well, but he can play kind of all over.
You think he won? You think he ultimately gets the start over Jamal Adams? Like they're not really going. I mean, can Jamal Adams still play?
I don't know. Like Molden, I think has a lot of flexibility, which is good. Jamal Adams is a name, but Jamal Adams hasn't been very good for a while.
Yeah,
and the thing is, neither good nor healthy, and I think the two are obviously interconnected. So Molden is a slight nod over Adams right now. I'm not. Nobody should be excited about the Jamal Adams signing.
Okay, what's your pass rush grade?
Pass rush. I'm on the wrong tab here now.
I'm gonna guess you're gonna give him a 4.
3.5.
3.5. Okay.
Mostly because I'm not keen on any of the pass rush abilities for the secondary for the most part, and I'm not sure on if you're talking a lot of press corner. I'm not sure what we're going to get from blitzes, safety blitzes, or even corner blitzes. I'm not sure if we're going to get a lot of help from that second level at all. So it's really going to come down to like your front, and it's going to come down to the big names up front. So pass rush was a little sketchy for me at times. It's like, hey, Jeffrey Simmons, Arden Key, Harold
Landry,
make it happen. Like you guys have to make all of it happen, basically.
Okay, so Landry missed all of 2022 with an ACL, but the year prior he was a Pro Bowler. He was good. He was good. And then last year he played all 17 games, started 10. And put up actually some pretty decent numbers, although the pressure stuff wasn't quite as compelling, I didn't think. He went from a pressure rate that was quite a lot better in 2021, and it fell off pretty aggressively. So tough for me to kind of just truly believe he's going to be as good as he was in 2021. But if he is, then then I'm low. But I'm at 3.5 for pass rush as well.
Okay. I think this can move up if we see the scheme. It's another tough one because of a new defensive coordinator coming in. It's hard to know what the scheme's going to bring, what kind of looks these guys are going to get, what kind of usage everyone's going to get. These are good players, but there's just not a lot of them. There's not a lot of guys rotating in to help. There's not a lot of good situational guys that can come in on late passing downs, and I don't know if I believe in the second and third levels as much to help with pass rush. So a little low, but it can go up.
Okay. Where are you at on secondary or coverage, I guess?
Coverage 6.
Okay. I'm at 7.
I thought I was getting a little spicy.
I really like this cornerback duo.
It's good, but it's in a new spot. Again, new coordinator, new spot for both guys. This could be an 8.5. This could be one of the best, secondary duos. Hell, I'm not talking Jamal Adams. Again, I'm still talking like Hooker.
I'm assuming Adams doesn't play. If he plays, I think
I'm gonna
he's
go. Yeah, I'm going. Snead and Uzi on the outside. McCreary is your slot box guy.
Putting McCreary in as your nickel, like that's three really good.
No,
Those are three guys that are your
right
coverage is going to be sick. Yeah.
And then if Molden plays well, and I think Amani Hooker is a very good safety, like it's the strength of your defense.
Okay. All right. Well, I can't convince you to go any higher. That's fine. You're at 47th percentile for the D. I'm at 45th percentile for the D. What is your special teams rating?
Special teams rating for this is a 7.5.
Ooh.
Big number. Nick Folk is probably a top 5 kicker when he's playing well. Stonehouse was second year last year. All his numbers got better as a punter. Tyjae Spears is maybe not going to be your returner if he's, if Pollard something happens or if he's getting banged up doing that, but he's a good enough kick returner. And then the Jaquan Jackson cat I mentioned, he returned punts at Tulane. He was pretty good at that. He can also return kicks if they decide Spears isn't going to be doing it. He's above average as well. So it's a strong special teams unit that again takes up 2.5% of my total rating. So it's a big rating, but it's not making a big difference.
If you are new to this, I'm just copying Andy's special teams work because I did not do any of my own. 7.5 sounds good to me. Good kicker. That's all I needed to hear. What's your intangible rating?
Intangible.
This was tough for me.
Yeah. It's tough with rookie first time guy we need a name for this where it's like, hey, you were an offensive coordinator. And I think we had this conversation last year about why isn't there more people involved in that second level? Why is there just 2 people at that second level below head coach? Why isn't there 2 offensive coordinators doing 2 different jobs? And I think some teams do that, but they don't pay them that way. There needs to be a name for an offensive coordinator that didn't call plays because it's not the same. It's not the same. It's 2 huge things. Suddenly you have to become a leader of men by being a head coach and putting together, you're the buck stops at you for the offensive game plan. So 3.5.
Okay. Do you have any opinion of Nick Holtz?
No, I just had that thing where he won that award at Colorado. He's been at a few spots where he's worked with some decent coaches. I want to find out what the connection was. I cared a little less because he's not calling plays, but I wonder how they.
I think he worked. He worked for Bill Callahan.
Maybe that was what it was.
He cut his teeth as an offensive assistant for the Raiders, offensive quality control for the Raiders, assistant wide receivers calls for the Raiders, all in Oakland.
Yeah, all the way back to 2012. So maybe
he was there for a good 9 years. Callahan was at the Raiders. Actually,
he was the assistant. He was the assistant quarterbacks coach.
He did not cross over with Callahan at the Raiders because Callahan was out at the Raiders in 2003.
Here's where you're absolutely wrong, Drew. He was the video intern and offensive quality control coach when Bill Callahan was at Nebraska.
Oh my goodness.
In 2007. So whatever. But he was an assistant quarterbacks coach at Stanford working with one Andrew J. Luck.
Okay.
So who knows?
Well, all right. So you're at 3.5 for intangibles. I'm at 3. And I don't have a good reason other than I like that you're a young offensive coach. I don't like that you didn't call plays. I don't love that you're from the McVay tree and McVay has some bad tendencies with respect to going to go for it, blah, 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 blah. And I don't know that I'm seeing a sign that the analytics department is especially strong in Tennessee, but maybe I'm not reading the right tweets. Your total for we came a long way to get to the same number. We are both at 38th percentile for the tits. But
with a lot of numbers that are probably on the ground floor and can move up. This is a team that's.
I have that as a -4. Is that where you're at?
I'm at 4.
-4.
Okay. It was close, but it rounded to 4. I'm not doing 10s.
All right, let's toggle some of these numbers. We get 4 weeks into the season. Will Levis is handling his pressure numbers low. The offensive line is doing their job. Will Levis is vibing with his wideouts, and and the fact that they can't stop the run hasn't hurt them. What are you upgrading first? Let's talk about the quarterback number first. You're comfortable going as high as what after 4 games?
Probably like 5 if he's playing. 5. If he's playing like we saw in I believe it was the Miami game, like he's average to above average. And part of it is going to be, I don't think you can say I'm impressed with Will Levis, but I'm not impressed with the play calling and the game planning. I don't know if he can succeed without that. So you're probably impressed with both. So like 5, 5.5, 6, maybe even if it's really good.
How high are you comfortable going? How high are you comfortable going with the offensive line if they look like they know what they're doing? 5, 4.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm in the same headspace. At best, that gets this team up to 500.
Yeah, I'm at a 51% team then.
Okay, so we're talking about if things go well, upgrading them from a -4 to a 0.
Tampa Bay territory. Which again, like I said, you could win a little luck. The thing about being a 0 team is, if you're a 0 team all year, a lot of times you still win 8, 9, 10 games. Just need a little luck in the close games, a little turnover luck, a little field goal luck, and suddenly this is a team that might make the playoffs. Which probably brings us to look at their
schedule. Yeah, let's look at the schedule. It is a lot of dog. They are only favored in 1 game, and that is hosting the New England Patriots week 9. They only have 1 primetime game. That is week 4 at the Miami Dolphinos. Miami is just going to run all over them in that game. That is fun. That is fun.
Cooler at night. You're not getting.
It'll be cooler at night. Yeah.
You're not getting the hot sideline.
Dude, the white hot speed of Miami against this run defense is a mess waiting to happen. And now it's just funny because Tennessee at Miami last year was plus 13.5. Now it's plus 6.5. What happened? I guess that's the difference in the ratings of Tennessee. Miami got downgraded a little from the end of last year, but not that much. What do you make of that?
I don't know. How long has it been since you looked at that number? Is it still 6.5?
No, but that looks like a good spot to lay the favorite. That looks like a good one to lay the fave, I got to tell you.
Prime time, well, rookie head coach in a primetime game against a much better offense.
Yeah, that's not going to be 6.5.
And there's a lot of games where they're just a little over a field goal dog, but like you can beat the Jets. You can Packers at home. Like Packers and Jets home early in the season, those are games you can win if things are going well.
Jets are a tough defense.
They're all. I mean, all these teams are better than them. They're all going to be tough. But
at Chicago is an interesting first start. Like, I don't know that I'm feeling so great about the Bears that they should be laying 4.5. What is that really where they're at right now?
A few rookies figuring things out. That's not a coaching staff I'm impressed with. That's what I'm saying. A lot of these games that are like 4 and under, like at the Chargers. Yeah, that's a bad travel spot probably, but. Sometimes that's a team where I'm really not sure that offense is going to hum at all.
That's the only bad travel spot all season.
Yeah, Minnesota might be a bad team. Washington is probably a bad team. Jacksonville, maybe they continue to spin the wheels. Indy is a question mark, like we're about to talk about. Jacksonville again. Houston, obviously tough. That's not great, but there's winnable games here. And like you said, it's going to come down to, are they a 35th percentile team or are they a 50th? And probably like a 5 or 6 game difference between those because of all these close games.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that they lose early. I mean, I actually, you know what? I would love for them to cover against the Bears and then not perform well against the Jets, Packers, and then actually 6.5 is still widely available for that look ahead number for Monday night, September 30th against the Dolphins. That's going to be a lay the favorite spot for me, almost certainly. And then, I would like the market to kind of decide and be satisfied with their rating on the Titans, that they're not very good and that they deserve a big minus number. You know what I mean? Because the hay you're going to make with these guys is taking them plus the big points. Against the Detroits of the world and against the Chargers of the world, maybe even against Texans of the world, or to take them as a small home dog against Minnesota, Washington, Jacksonville. Like that's kind of God, dude, like betting Tennessee as a small dog against Minnesota and Washington, especially if those are rookie quarterbacks coming to town, like that kind of sounds good, right?
No, we're not doing that. We're going to be laying Tennessee minus 3.5.
Yeah, right,
Hosting
right,
Minnesota
right.
at like plus 225.
Right. Okay. I think realistically, this is probably a team that starts pretty sluggishly, and ultimately is a team that you're betting on in the middle of the season. Hopefully, they don't give up on Levis too early, but we'll see.
I think the only interesting ones would be like divisional odds, win total, alt win total, and
you have any interest in that?
Like I said, I might be more just interested in Houston. No, with all these other teams that have, they're all
can steal a game or two.
Fun, quirky teams that might be good, but it's hard to pick between the three, and they all play each other.
Yeah. What their win total is? What? I'm looking at a 6.5. It's plus 117 juice to the over, minus 137 juice to the under. I will agree with you that an alt win total is a fun bet to make on these guys.
Like alt win total
hoping
to
that they
make
get
the
A wins. Yeah, alt wins. Yeah. What's their make a playoff price? Make the playoffs for the Titans. Yes, is, you want to guess? I'm staring at it.
225
plus 436.
Really? I suppose it's the AFC. There's so many good teams.
436.
That was a terrible guess.
Yeah. Minus 662 to the no. That's poison. I think there's just too much talent in this division for me to get involved with Titans, even at a monster price of plus 1184 to win the South. I think their path to the playoffs. I know I bet
worse teams.
Yeah, I bet worse teams. Yeah. I think their path in is wild card probably, though. I don't think it's division. It's just too crowded. With that, let's put a pin in these guys. Come back to them after 4 weeks. Take a look at the pressure numbers. Take a look at the performances we're getting out of Will Levis, and hopefully the market is either solidified as cool or is not seeing whatever we're seeing that one tells us to buy these guys. Any team with speed, any team with a good running attack and a good running scheme is going to fuck these guys up on the ground.
Yeah.
I will tell you.
Miami added another guy, like just to be hilarious, and start spamming that shit. So, all right, we're calling this one a week. We'll be back in 14 seconds to do another one of these. So, appreciate you guys if you listen to this in podcast form. If you listen to it brand new today on Tuesday, Colts one will be out tomorrow morning. We are doing these an hour earlier. I really meant to tweet that, and then I got busy with life this afternoon. So we're going to do these at 7 Eastern as we go because they're 2 freaking hours long. And so look for that Wednesday. We will start at 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern rather than the normal times as we get through these. I'll catch you guys on the other side.
Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive, pod number 6 in our team previews for the 2024 NFL season. This pod covers the third choice in the AFC South, the Indianapolis Colts. And this is going to be interesting in a lot of ways because there's reasons to believe that the Colts are a bet on. There's reasons to believe that the market is going to be disappointed by the Colts. There's reasons to believe that some of the data you have from last year is true signal. Some of it is fool's gold. And there are definitely, I would say 100% chance that as long as Anthony Richardson is healthy, I will be watching every single Colts game this season.
Yeah, he was my jam last year. He was fun for a little bit. That sucked. It was still a weird team that won a bunch of games here and there. It's always a weird division. They finished with 9 wins. Almost got there, guys. It was close. Obviously, that loss to the Texans was basically their entire postseason win percentage probability. Lost a close one. I mean, they lost some games down the stretch to teams they probably could have beat. That Falcons game was ugly. God, the Bengals were a good team, even with a backup quarterback, and that was at the Bengals off the back of another road game in Tennessee that they ended up winning. So it was tough, but another one where it's like, I really want this team in the playoffs if I'm watching from a pure, entertainment standpoint. Yeah, I got busy with life. It was a lot of staring at the VP line movement. That killed my morning, and then I had other things to do. Dude, there's a major golf tournament this week, guys.
I love it.
I don't have a lot. I don't have a lot more to say other than that. Like it started fun. We had Anthony Richardson, and then we ended up, not having Anthony Richardson, and it was less fun. Wasn't a massive offseason. Most of the moves were, you got a backup quarterback, you got Raekwon Davis. You had your pick of the best defensive rookie fall in your lap based on everyone else in front of you. You had a wide receiver that fell a little bit, you got. I thought they ended up with some nice pieces in the draft. Past that, they drafted a couple of nice depth pieces at offensive line. And then the losses were pretty small. Like your biggest loss is Minshew, Moss. I mean, they didn't lose a lot of teams off this. Shaq Leonard wasn't good anymore. I mean,
okay. So let's kind of let's do a little bit more autopsy on 2023, because there's been sort of a recasting that, like, you can see it. Like, the market is white fucking hot on the Texans. White hot. The Texans are like the fourth choice in the AFC or something absurd. Like, it's way crazy how quickly people believe in that team. And the Colts are just kind of an afterthought in this division in the eyes of the market. The Texans are minus 111 to win the South. The Colts are plus 359. The Colts came a 4th and 1 away from beating the Texans last year in the final game of the season and being the host of the wild card game against the Browns. And they were in that game largely at the mercy of absolutely atrocious play calling by Bobby Slowick. The Texans probably shouldn't have been that close. It should have been a little bit cleaner kill. But the fact remains, like, when they needed they're down. I forgot this. That was a 17-17 game with 6 minutes to play when Devin Singletary punched it in for a touchdown. They missed the extra point, which kept the door open for the Colts to steal. And then Jonathan Taylor just went right up the gut over and over and over again. It felt like all the way down to the 2-yard line, at which point they decided it was now Gardner Minshew time to throw it to Tyler Goodson. It was like, we get a little cute there, Steichen.
Was that litigated at all after? Did anyone dig into that play after the game? Felt like that was 3 days of that shit.
Because it was a standalone game, and
I know it's a standalone game, and then also it's
like Saturday, right?
Yeah, it's like, hey guys, Colts aren't winning the Super Bowl. Like, it sucks, but it's fine.
But,
it'll be fine.
The real kind of amazing part of that game, and really that entire sequence, was like CJ Stroud was cooking by that point in that game, and Steichen had the ability to recognize it and realize it, and decided, okay, I need to do a drive that eats up 6 minutes of clock and ends with a touchdown, and then we go to the playoffs. And he got very, very close to pulling that off. It was a very tough ask, and he was almost extremely successful. It was very cool to see. And it was basically like, I was a soft buy on Shane Steichen before any of that, just because I liked a lot of what we saw from him last year in terms of just how do you operate a team. And then after that particular performance where they lost, I was like, I'm all in. This guy fucking rocks. He's absolutely knows how to do this. And he almost pulled off a very, very tough ask, which is to say a tough ask even more broadly than winning that game with that drive, which was winning games with Gardner Minshew for a lot of the season. And the early injury and exit by Anthony Richardson sucked. It was just a tough blow. Like, I don't, he's a really young kid, 21, like long career ahead of him, hopefully. And the flashes we saw in his 4 starts were just very, very high level, I thought, and particular because of his ability to just get the hard yard in a way that, you were impressed by the lower body strength and the push gotten by Jalen Hurts. Well, wait till you see an even bigger dude do it.
Yeah.
Cam Newton reminiscent in terms of how effective he can be in the red zone and on 4th and short. And I hope he stays healthy and we can see it exercise, because it's kind of perfect player for system with what Shane Steichen wants to do. And just in general, the fact that we had that he took Gardner Minshew. It was a little bit of an easy schedule, and they went 7-6 and almost made the playoffs, and 8-5 gets them there and has them hosting a playoff game, which is just incredible. 2 game-winning drives for Gardner Minshew. I wouldn't have had that on my bingo card preseason. And just this was a Gardner Minshew that was an absolute sack magnet. Like, guy could not get the ball out of his hand when he needed to avoid the sack over the balance of the season. And they found ways to work around it, which was pretty impressive. Now, they did it largely thanks to, I thought, a huge resurgence from their offensive line that was unexpected. I don't think anyone expected that Colts offensive line to kind of finish in the top 8, maybe 5 of the NFL last year, but they did. They were awesome. They have, they now have bona fide players with relatively low costs like Bernard Raymond.
Well, yeah, and it's because they suck shit in 2022, Drew. It was a bad, there was injuries that helped that, but like it was like a bottom 10 offensive line 2 years ago. Huge turnaround. That was massive for Minshew, who probably brought some of their ratings down with his lack of, I don't know. Sometimes it seems like his awareness goes out the window a little. He makes some bad decisions on how long he holds onto it, or the direction he takes when the play breaks down. But no, it was massive how well that offensive line played last year, and a lot of what ifs, because like you said, we did fall in love with the coaching staff. We fell in love with the way they were able to not only put the offense in for Richardson, but adjust it for Minshew, who are completely different guys. And I even used the Richardson doing the cam on the thumbnail today because I love that. And it's a great comp because he's a huge dude who also has a big enough arm, and I think he has the whole skill sets. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't in love with him leading up into the draft with a lot of the stuff I was reading about him. And I guess, again, just goes to show I'm not a college football quarterback evaluator. I've been 0 for 100 on those so far.
Okay. Among their players last year, I had very, very solid grades for DeForest Buckner, Michael Pittman Jr., Quentin Nelson, Kwity Paye, Samson Ebukam, which is funny because Buckner, Paye, and Ebukam are all pass rushers, and they went and drafted another pass rusher. So you're adding a little bit of strength to strength there, which was wild.
It's not like they had their choice of the 2 top corners at that spot.
Thank you.
That is,
what was that about?
We'll get to this more when we talk about the defense in a little bit, but yeah, the main issue with the offseason was you got put in a weird position because I think they expected probably God, what was the name of the guy the Vikings took? Turner. I think they expected Turner and at least one other pass rusher, probably 2 pass rushers and a corner, maybe even 2 pass rushers and 2 corners to be off the board when they got up. Their plan had to look so weird because they were probably prepped for who's the 3rd best corner, who's the second best pass rusher, 3rd best, and where are we at once those guys all land. And shit, we can pick anybody we want on the defensive side of the ball. Let's take the guy who medically retired from football 2 years ago at a position that we're already having premium players at. Like Latu might be really good, and we've seen it, but man, you were in dire straits at the corner position, the outside corner position especially, and it was odd. But at the same time,
not dying to see what Juju Brents and Jalen Jones have against some very good passing attacks that they're going to face this year. But
they did go after Snead a little. They were linked. Yes. Obviously, it made sense. Didn't happen.
Oh,
you play against him instead.
Yeah. And I think ultimately, like, infrastructure looks good. If Anthony Richardson stays healthy. That's a huge if. You're strong in the trenches, like strong in both trenches. Like awesome. Like you have a young quarterback on a good deal. Awesome. You have a coach who has a pulse. Awesome. Actually, you have a coach who honestly, like, I kind of want to give him credit. Did he in any way like help revive Jim Bob Cooter and Gus Bradley, who had kind of given up on his coordinators? Like those guys did fine jobs last year. Was that Steichen's influence, or is it just like they just happened to, to be part of something that was good culture? I don't know, but
I'd like to hear somebody else's opinion on that, because again, it's tough where you see these guys bounce around. It's like, oh man, this guy's crushing it. I hope he gets a coordinator job, and then he ends up at a spot, and it's like, was he not ready to call offense, or was it just the wrong situation? Because we've seen, oh God, where was Cooter before? He was Jacksonville's like a passing game coordinator as well. Mm-hmm. And obviously things didn't work out so well down there. We saw him up in Detroit. Same thing with Gus Bradley. I've had times where I've trusted Gus.
Sure.
I've had some very bad results from Gus Bradley over the years.
Yeah.
They just keep getting jobs, guys.
Yeah. So, strong foundation for this team, surely. And I think when I kind of looked at opponents before looking at the schedule and just kind of believing in Steichen, expecting a full season out of Richardson, this was the team I was ready to be like ride hard for as a dark horse. Like the delta of the games between the Colts and the Texans in terms of schedule alone is worth something like 1.5 wins. The Colts get this, they get this beautiful matchup advantages where they draw the likes of Denver and Minnesota and the Giants, whereas their opponents are playing the Cowboys and the Chiefs and the Ravens. It all looked so good on paper for them to have a sneaky path to this division. And between just not really connecting on all of the guys I wanted to, not really hitting it out of the park in the draft, and then some of the sequencing with the schedule, and then just kind of digesting, man, this whole division is really tough. I've lost my fire a little bit for the Colts. I have to be honest. And I now think like, yes, there's definitely upside here, but expecting them to, just be able to fully exercise it is going to come down to the health of Richardson, which I don't know that I feel 100% confident about anymore. Where are you with the Colts?
It's tough to rate Richardson because we saw so little of him. But like we said, we're putting a rating together for kind of a marrying of the quarterback, the offensive coordinator, play calling, scheme, game planning, all that together. And I struggled to put this as low as I really probably should have it because of the upside you see in Richardson. And I think maybe it would be lower in different spots because of, like you said, how much we like Steichen as a game planner, a guy who can put a game plan together to make him successful. So I'm probably high on this because there's so little sample on Richardson. But I looked at this. I'm like, God, if it was aside from Steichen, you could go put like a 2 on this because you don't know. Like there's no sample to it. I went with a 4.5.
Yeah, there's definitely not enough sample. Surely.
I went a little wish casting here. I went a 4.5 because I think it's silly to think he fails in a big way. And again, these are numbers that are going to move. Every one of these probably moves for as the season goes on based on injury and stuff. But Steichen is pulling it up more than Richardson for me.
Okay.
Right? I think it's still below average because it's a quarterback who doesn't have a lot of experience.
Okay.
But based on what he can do and his capability, his potential, it's closer to average for sure.
Okay. So I had to go 5. And the reason I did is because I had to comparatively come up with, would I trade Steichen Richardson as a combo? Would I swap them for New Orleans?
Yeah, I just was looking. I have New Orleans the same number.
Like, no, I wouldn't. They got to be at least equal. So, and I think, the draft pedigree matters for me. Part of my process was pure quant. and the draft pedigree matters. So there has to be a delta between Richardson and Levis, even though at the time they were both kicked around as the 4th overall pick. But ultimately where they landed, their compensation, and the small sample we've seen on both, I don't mind having a big delta between Levis and Richardson. And again, I was 3 on Levis, and I also have more questions about the OC situation in Tennessee than I do in Indy. I think they will find a way to make this work with Richardson. So 5 for me. You're at 4.5. Where are you for skill position group?
Skill position group on the Colts, 5.5. I have question marks at the wide receiver, probably up and down the side, but we're going into the season with a good running back room. We don't have the distraction of the contract stuff.
Yep.
We should be in a lot better shape, because that was a big problem, I think, to start the year as well, with Jonathan Taylor, who's
agreed,
very, very good. Tight end isn't, tight end is just whatever.
Jelani Woods isn't your guy.
Jelani Woods, Mo Alley Cox. Those guys are going to be, they'll give you average to slightly above average. It depends what we get from the rookie, A.D. Mitchell. It depends what you get from your slot guy in Josh Downs, who I like. I like him quite a bit. And then I think Michael Pittman's good. And I think you put it all together, you have some depth guys in Pierce and Ashton Doolin. It's decent to above average, but I just couldn't get there like, oh, Michael Pittman's a stud. He's such a wide receiver 1. We need to have this rated a little higher. Like Jonathan Taylor's doing some of the heavy. Low, actually. Yeah, Jonathan Taylor's doing some of the heavy lifting for me here, because if you look at the pass catching group as a whole, you have to lump him in there as well. And I mean, even as the backups, Hull was okay in limited time. Trey Sermon's a guy people have been all over his D for a while. So I'm a little above average here in the skill position group.
Okay, I'm barely above average. I'm 5.5. And part of the reason is I don't love it that your best player is your running back.
Well, that was that too. 5.5.
Oh, is that what you were at? Oh, okay.
Yeah, 5.5.
I wrote that down. 5.5. We're on the same exact page there. I'm left wanting more out of Pittman, even though I like him perfectly fine as a player. I like Downs perfectly fine as a player. These guys all have roles. They all have upside, but their ceilings are too low to really kind of distinguish this unit. And I honestly have no idea what to make of A.D. Mitchell. His draft slide was bizarre. The kind of rumor mongering about why teams had kind of hurt him did not make any sense to me. And I think ultimately he could be a difference maker, surely, but he's still a rookie wideout. So, those take time to learn and get good at stuff. So low expectations to start for him.
Type 1 diabetes concern, which, I mean, you have a medical staff, you have a, wellness and nutrition staff. You think as a pro organization to be able to help him up quite a bit, managing that. But there was some off the field stuff too that let him slide a little. And it might be one of those where a lot of people didn't want to draft Randy Moss because of his off the field stuff. Every once in a while, that stuff comes back to bite about 25 teams.
Sure. Yeah. And I look at depth in the wide receiver depth in the wide receiver room is a question. I don't really like any of these second level guys. The tight end position is a minus for me, and depth in the running back room is a question mark. So there's things to ding here, but in terms of target share, I have to give some target share to a rookie wide receiver. So they're getting hurt on that Browns almost exclusively. So O-line for you.
O-line for me, 7.5, which, boy, you told me that at the beginning of last year. I would have asked you who they all signed, I guess, at that point. But this was quite the improvement. Bernard Raymond, huge improvement sophomore season. Quentin Nelson probably never gets back to his peak, but him being healthy just helped everyone, I think, and he obviously was pretty good. Ryan Kelly was the best center in pass protection in the entire league last year. Braden Smith, he was good when he played. He did miss some time with the knee injury, but putting him with Raymond? Yeah, I almost said Rain Man. Raymond, it's a very good tackle duo. And then your weak spot is right guard, but at the same time, it's not like – are we saying Fries or Freeze? I'm not sure I've heard his name
Will
called up. Freeze. I'm going to go with the Germans saying Freeze. And at the same time, they have Blake Freeland. They drafted this Bortolini from Wisconsin. They drafted oh man, I'm not going to say this guy's name right either. Goncalves. They drafted depth in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, wherever it was, for multiple spots on the offensive line. They have depth. Like this is top 5. This is a top 5 in offensive line.
Yeah. Okay. I'm at 7, but only because I have just a little bit of a ding on a couple of these players for availability questions. Like I think part of the reason they were so good last year is because of continuity, and who knows if you're going to get that lucky again with some of the track record of these guys, but not that big of a delta. You're at 55th percentile for the offense. I'm at 56th percentile. All right. Run stop 5. Yep, same.
It was gotta have some notes on this. Grover Stewart, very, very good. Grover Stewart cannot do it by himself. It's basically it. You need some help if you want to bring this up a little. Like we need to see some more from the safeties. You need to see more from the second level. Some of those ratings for run stop at the second level, third level weren't great. But you have one good guy.
Zaire Franklin, I have a good grade on. He's a good tackler. Franklin, what's your rating there?
I'm looking right now. I have him above average, but not by a lot.
But not by much, right.
No,
enough to get that unit to the Mendoza line, or at least average, right?
Yeah, I'm Mendoza line there. Like your pass rush is probably the stronger suit up there, and then Kenny Moore helps. Kenny Moore is a good inside corner, a good guy that can work up in the box a little. The linebackers are probably worse in coverage than they are at run stop, but at the same time, they're not rating up super high. So just a 5 for me.
Okay. No, nothing to disagree with you about there. Where are you on the defensive rating for pass rush?
6. This was the highest rating I gave them was a 6.
I have a 6 also. We are in very strong agreement so far.
Lockstep. DeForest Buckner, he's your best player on the team, probably on the at least on the defensive side. Latu is a big bonus if that works out. Kwity Paye is good. Abukam is good. Like these are all good players. Like to see health from everybody. Latu working out, more pressures, and more interior pressure as well, because like Buckner's an interior guy, but he's all over the place. Like he'll line up over tackles. So we just need some guys with his versatility to make the most of DeForest Buckner, and then this number probably goes up as well.
Okay. And then we've kind of hit the highs. Where are you on coverage?
Went back and forth between 3.5 and 4 here.
Ooh,
ended up on a 3.5.
Okay. I'm at 3.
Yeah, and some of it was because I already talked about him. Some of it was because I do like Kenny Moore. I think he's good, and the fact that Juju Brents is young and seems to have some potential. Yeah, you don't, like I said, you're not getting a lot from the linebackers in coverage. You're not getting a lot from the outside guys at the secondary level. Like the secondary is bad, and I don't know that I see a path to getting a lot better. Blackburn Cross, like decent safeties. Like I said, Kenny Moore is good as your third corner, your slot guy. But Juju Brents, it has to be like a big jump. Same thing with Flowers, and it might not even be Flowers. There's a few guys that it could be on the outside. And when you have that much uncertainty on the outside, don't know. We'll find out. Flowers had an Achilles injury. And like you said, with Gus Bradley, who knows?
Okay.
Jalen Jones, different Jalen Jones. Daryl Baker Jr. could see some time. Just not good coverage grades on any of these guys.
Yeah. This is one where a lot of sort of the generic stats might kind of obscure a little bit that they had. I thought they faced a pretty easy schedule last year in terms of opposing quarterbacks. And I think that is, when you do a careful adjustment for strength of opposing quarterbacks for coverage grades, it doesn't look as pretty. And I think this group needed to be upgraded, and just expecting that you're going to be able to get, good performance out of a 2nd and a 7th round pick from 2023. And that you're going to backfill that with the guys that I really don't know if they deserve starting, deserve tons of time on the field is sort of where I have questions. Not gonna argue with you on Kenny Moore, but like, don't really want to see.
No, when your outside guys aren't good, and
Jalen Simpson,
like we just agreed that the strength of this defense is probably the pass rush, and we talk about this, and we will on every single episode. When your outside corners are no good, that just saps from your strength.
Yeah.
If your secondary is not being able to press, if they're not being able to, prevent separation, your pass rush is not going to have time to get there, and it's neutralizing your only strength on the defense. And this defense could drop down to like a 40th percentile. I've met a 48th. It could drop below that for sure.
You're at 40. I have you at 48th. I'm at 47th. Where are you at for special teams?
Special teams for the Colts is a 4.5. Matt Gay wasn't great last year. He 8 for 13 from 50 plus, only hit 80% of his kicks. Rigoberto Sanchez was a decent punter. And then the kicker, your kick returner is probably going to be a rookie.
They're not going to. They can't afford Downs as a kick returner.
I think he's a rookie. Anthony Gould.
They're going to use Gould. Okay.
That's what I'm seeing in a couple places.
Okay.
Right. Oregon State kid didn't return punts a lot, but it sounds like he's going to try to do that as well. So below average special teams.
Okay. Where you are for intangibles?
Intangibles is a 6.
Ooh, I'm at 7.5 for intangibles. I guess maybe I'm just drinking too much Shane Steichen Kool-Aid.
I know I had to drag it down a little for the coordinators because I don't know. Like, I think Gus Bradley might be a little antiquated, and it might exacerbate some of the problems with the combination of the pass rush and the secondary. And yeah, I think maybe I built a lot of my stuff on Steichen as a coordinator and not as an overall coach. So I didn't want to. I didn't want to double management.
Count. If Steichen makes a mistake in game management, I'll be shocked. Like,
yeah, I didn't want to double. I didn't want to double count him though, so I kept it a little lower on that. So I'm a 6 there, which gives me a.
You're at a
53rd, 54th if we round up.
Yeah. So that makes the Colts a +2 for you.
I had 1.5.
1.5. Okay.
We'll see about rounding.
Okay. I'm at 55th percentile for the Colts, which is a +2.5. So I'm pretty bullish on the Colts. Let's talk about one thing here real quick.
So the Drew Colts would be a 2.5 point favorite at home against the Andy Colts.
Yes, exactly.
Let's never do that again. That's just confusing.
Here's where I want to go now. We got a big deviation from our much respected friends over at FTN, who write the Football Almanac, who are very cool on Los Colts. Did you see that? They're projecting them at
Rivers McCown
7 mean wins.
And again, I did read this afternoon. A lot of it was based on, hey, we're just saying Richardson's going to be great, or at least good. Why? How are we going to be able to do that? And I think part of the answer to rebuke what they're after is it's probably an even easier schedule than last year. It's not going to be a tough schedule. And the games that really will matter when you're trying to solidify that wild card spot or solidify that division win, the last 5 weeks could be pretty smooth sailing. You got tough.
I can't wait to look at the schedule.
You got to play the Bills. You got to play the Lions. You got to play, the Texans twice. You got to play the Packers. But the last 5 weeks, even with 3 of them on the road, it's not too bad. Like they could streak into the playoffs.
Okay.
And then, as somebody brought up, Showtime here on the chat says it's stake and bet for Coach of the Year. He would get the most credit for a playoff berth. How many times have we seen? I know, but how many times have we seen this with awards? What have you done for me lately? And MVP awards being decided in the last 3 weeks. Like it feels like I haven't landed on which award. If it's like a Richardson Offensive Player of the Year award, something fun like that. If he's like really fun, but it's like, hey, we can't give him MVP.
What do you think his ceiling is for rushing touchdowns?
Depends if they want to start using him. You don't have to go full Jalen Hurts, but if you want to use him as your short game guy, because Jonathan Taylor's maybe starting to get a little longer in the tooth and has had some injuries, why can't he have 12?
I think you just have a beautiful 2-headed monster on the ground in the red zone.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, what did he have? He had in his 4 starts last year. It felt like he was just automatic.
It was a bunch. Like he had a game where
Can he get 17 touchdowns and 17 starts on the ground this year?
If he has like 30 and 15 and he ends up with 45 total touchdowns, like he's definitely in the mix for OPOI. Especially like I said, if you
we
go
haven't had
down
a quarterback OPOI in a while.
No, it feels like
it's turned into sort of the non.
It's turned into the best wide receiver, but at the same time, we get this. Where
CMC got it last year.
We can't. Oh yeah, he did. Why do I have Lamar in my head? Lamar won the MVP.
Lamar was your MVP, and then Tyreek Hill got beat by CMC.
I think for a big part of the season, we were looking at Tyreek. We were looking at JJ early in the year. JJ had it locked up the year before. Yeah, there were so many touchdowns. McCaffrey just scored every freaking week. But again, let's pull up the schedule because I just keep referencing it. But at the end of the year, hey, Denver, awesome. Tennessee, Giants, Jacksonville, New England. There's 5 shitty defenses. Like he could have 6-8 rushing touchdowns in that 5-week stretch with the bye in it and get himself some trophies.
Okay, here's what I love about this schedule, except for the fact that these are all 1 p.m. Sunday games, why you want to bury a player who is as fun to watch as Anthony Richardson, who knows, but a lot of only the one primetime game against the Jets on the November 17th. And that's at New York. This schedule is fun and fascinating to me because it is so backloaded. You are favored in your last 5 games, even though you're a 500 team by the market. That's wild. Your last 3 road games at New England, at Denver, at Giants. So you're basically going to go against presumably rookie Drake May, presumably rookie Bo Nix, and presumably Daniel Jones, if he even has a handle on the job with the Giants at that point. Those are your 3 tough road games at the end of the season. And then you sandwich in a Tennessee and a Jacksonville at home where you're small favorites. Like you get a late bye. Like there's a lot to like about the end of this schedule. Like them ripping off 5-0 down the home stretch to get a playoff bid is very, very in the cards, in my opinion. The trickier part of the schedule is really that
middle's not great.
There's
at
all those
Houston,
disadvantages.
Buffalo, at Jets, Detroit. Like getting out of that 4-game stretch, that 5-game stretch with Detroit, getting out of there with like 2 wins feels pretty solid. Even going back to Miami at home, Houston on the road, Minnesota on the road, who they might have some quarterback figured out by then. You want Minnesota earlier. Buffalo, again, you want them earlier before they figure out what the wide receiver room looks like exactly. Jets, same thing. You want them earlier because of the Rodgers injury comeback. That's a tough stretch in the middle. Like there's a bye point at some point there, I think.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. The other kind of funny wrinkle I want to point out, which is wild, week 2 at Green Bay, there are very few games where the road team has the travel advantage. That is because Green Bay is traveling home from Brazil and India is just going right up the road. That kind of cracks me up.
That's like I think you could drive that in like 7 hours.
Yeah.
Like Indy to Green Bay by plane is really quick.
Yes, it's quite fast. And Tennessee, playing at Tennessee off their bye. Okay, that's not great.
Oh, shit. Did they get rid of the pool?
Where?
At Lucas Oil.
Oh yeah, it's yeah.
Okay.
It's already been deconstructed. They put it in storage until LA 2028. I don't know that they're going to use the same pool. But yeah,
single use. It's a single usage.
Well, they built a temporary pool in the parking lot of the Long Beach Convention Center for the trials in 2004. And then they deconstructed it and they reconstructed it in our neighborhood, and it's still in use today. So these temporary pools end up having second homes, and
that's nice. It's like when they turn something into a reef for fish.
Exactly. But yeah, I don't love I don't love having to take on Tennessee on the road when they're coming off their bye. I don't love taking on the Dolphins when they're coming off their bye. But count the elite quarterbacks that this secondary is going to face, and let's include CJ Stroud.
Are we including Stroud? All right.
Well, yeah, I think include Stroud. I think include Love. Yeah, I think we just put the bona fide guys in.
So Stroud, Love, Russell Wilson. Kidding. Don't do that. I'm not even putting Trevor in that point right now based on what we've seen from that.
I think you should.
Offense.
I think you should put Trevor.
Trevor counts as half. So we're going to count him as one, even though we're playing him twice. Levis isn't Tua?
I think
Counts just based on the offense. Stroud again. Minnesota's not, but Diggs is gone. Josh Allen is. Aaron Rodgers is. Detroit makes count him. Yeah, count him based on how well he played last year. And then that's it, unless you want to count
Trevor again at the end. Yeah, maybe. Okay.
It's like half and half.
Yeah, so I think getting to December 500 feels about right. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I had this as a slightly above average team, and if they can take advantage of a few coin flips, you beat up a Tennessee team who's in a better spot than you at home off a bye. If you're able to beat Pittsburgh, which, gosh, depending on what you feel about that, I think that number's a little low. If you're able to beat Chicago while they're still figuring out, like, you win your coin flips. And, then just take your fucking medicine in the middle of the season, lose 5 out of 6 there, or whatever, come out of there 500 or a little worse, and then you got to rip off the end of the season and make it to the playoffs.
Yeah, I got to
fix my doable
formatting on the yellow color on the snowflakes. But the other thing I wanted to point out about the fact that you have these 4 games late that are outdoors in colder weather. Normally, if you're a dome team, I'm looking at you a little sideways. But the strength of the Colts is trenches. You should be able to run stop against those units. You should be able to get your ground game going against those units, which I think has me, kind of increasingly bullish on being able to do some damage down the stretch here. So does that get you to 10 wins? Probably not. I think what we're talking about is 6-6 out of week 12, maybe 5-7, and then you finish your last 5 games. You get all of those wins, which is saying a lot because even the last one against the Jags is going to be a coin flip. You're talking about 10, maybe 11 wins if things go right. So, what's the temperature or the general spirit or market sentiment of this team if we get to week 12 and they are not around 500?
And so much depends on just how well Houston plays in their second act. They got to follow up what they did. You gotta consolidate serve or you consolidate your break at this point. And if Houston's looking like a very good team who's going to continue to play well in the offense, maybe those last 5 games are less consequential to the division. We're just looking at who needs to lose here and who needs to lose there for us to cash up and make the playoff price, and then starting to price some outcomes there.
Yeah. Okay. So let me restate something I said earlier about the schedule. The delta between the Colts and the Texans comes in terms of just common, non-common opponents, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Texans get the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Cowboys. The Colts, in contrast, get the Broncos, the Steelers, and the Giants.
It's a lot.
That's a big delta. Like, how many wins difference is that?
It's probably 2 wins.
Just between those 3 opponents, right?
Not quite. No, like 1.7.
Pretty close, though. 1 point something.
Yeah, 1.7.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'd like to see the win probability on those. Just the difference against a neutral team.
Okay, let me tell you what the actual win probability is.
Like
so
1.
we're talking
7.
about 53. The market is saying they have 53% chance to get at the Giants, 54 at Denver, and 51 versus Pittsburgh. So you're summed up to only 1.6 wins there. Meanwhile, Houston is 22% chance to win at Baltimore. They are,
and Houston's a higher rated team. So if you normalize this to an average team, you're probably talking about like 1 point. I don't know, a quarter win.
Man, I'm confused. Maybe I'm making a mistake. Oh, I didn't redo the Houston. Sheet yet. That's why I'm like all confused by their opponents. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I'm just trying to think this out loud, like, because you'd want to just take an average team versus those 6 teams and sum it up. And we're considering the Colts slightly above average, so it should be a little lower. But again, we have Houston is very much above average. So
in terms of expected win probability, Houston is 42% at Dallas. They are 36% at KC, and they are 48% hosting Baltimore. So your total is 1.3. So it's only a delta of 0.3, even though it feels like a lot more because of the way it's sequenced, I guess.
But I will tell you, outside of a unique situation where they end an extra period with the same amount of points, the difference will average out to an integer.
Yes, it will. So we'll round it up to 1.
I'm going to round it to 2.
Okay.
It's still a fair size difference.
Can you pull up the schedule one more time and game theory something for me?
Sure.
Or just rate this take. The Colts season comes down to week 1. If they win that coin flip, hosting the Texans, they win the division, they're going to the playoffs.
It's a big leverage game right off the bat, isn't it?
It's a big one.
Because if you win that game, you could start.
You're 4-2. You
could start 5-1.
5-1.
I think you could win. You could win at Jacksonville. Then suddenly going, 1 for 5, 1 for 6, 2 for 6 through the middle isn't so hurt.
Yeah,
because you have the easy landing.
Yeah, it's not crazy.
No, massive. It's
that week 1 game is
a 1 p.m. game important. And week 1 is monster.
It's monster. Fascinating. I can't wait to see how that market goes. I'm excited to see if it gets bet Houston because everything seems to be like getting bet Houston. It's like, oh,
a good comment here from Sean. Like you talk about if the front 4 gets home, will that help the DBs a bit more? It's true that is true, but it's easier to negate by just I don't know, running the Miami offense. And hey, guess what? You're never getting home.
2.5, 2.3.
Yeah. Hey, we have Downs as a good slot guy. We have Pittman who can get some instant separation if need be. We just get rid of the ball quick. Hey, we have a really good running back. Like, yeah, it's true if you're not able to speed up the offense and speed up the time to pass.
Yeah.
That's right. I think Steichen would be able to.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, I think the Colts are going to be a pretty important team to understand early this season. And I think I just can't believe how much their season kind of hinges on that first game, because they lose that game and now you're in trouble for winning the division. You've lost a home division game. You're you've got that middle portion of the schedule, which is gnarly. And, then maybe your entire framework of what do we want to do this season comes down to we're going to win those last 5 games and steal a wild card, as opposed to we're really going to compete for the AFC South.
What do you think Richardson's yardage total is for passing?
2250.
3150.
Whoa. Huh?
Yeah.
That's really, really aggressive.
I know. I like him. What do you think his rushing is?
Wait, what's the number? 3150?
3150.
I guess that's only 185 yards a game.
But it's also stay healthy, play them all.
I'll stay healthy and play all 17 games. Yeah. Let's say you're expecting 14 games out of them. 225 a game. That sounds about right, actually. So that's probably a reasonable number. That's a little high.
What's just the risk
rushing total? His rushing total?
Yeah.
825.
525.
Really?
I don't know if they're just expecting them to. He didn't run as much as we thought. He ran a lot in the red zone, it felt like. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that. I think he threw a lot more than they expected.
4 games, he only had 25 attempts for 136 yards. It was all short stuff. You're right. His success rate on rushing attempts was 64%. Holy shit.
Yeah, it just feels like he needed to get his legs under him a little as far as getting there to being comfortable scrambling a little more. And we just didn't get a lot of time with him. We're just kind of looking at bets.
Okay. Richardson threw for 144 yards per game last year. Although that's probably he didn't finish the game.
He left at least one, if I'm thinking 2 games early.
He had the shoulderish or ankle or knee in game week 1, but he finished, I thought. Maybe not.
He had his bell rung too. I thought we had a concussion.
He had a concussion, yeah. This guy is not super reliably.
Anthony Richardson is now 50-1 for Offensive Player of the Year. I think I need a little more than that. Same price as Mahomes. I don't think Mahomes. That is one of the funnier bets. Like Mahomes is the same price as Kyron Williams to be Offensive Player of the Year. Because what situation? That's such a weird thought exercise. How in the world could Mahomes ever win Offensive Player of the Year? As a guy who has a 5,000-yard, 50 touchdown season,
he breaks the all-time passing touchdown record on a 4 seed.
Yeah, I was going to say the team would have to kind of suck. There would have to be a quarterback. I think you'd have to have like a Joe Burrow 16-1 season or something, something like that. Another quarterback who hasn't really done it yet, absolutely just murders the schedule. Maybe it's not the counting stats, but the team is so good and it's so much because of him. And then Mahomes just has sick numbers, but the team isn't that great, which is hard to like. Mahomes to be Offensive Player of the Year should be a much bigger number.
Yeah, it should be.
Which is weird to say because you would think, you'd think it would be the other way.
I mean, there's like honestly, Mahomes Offensive Player of the Year his year is so good he sweeps both.
Yeah, he just does the double.
Did you say that?
No. I mean, it's like the hey, we're giving you both awards. Like I'm sorry, nobody else gets one this year. You got the 1 seed and you threw for 5,800 yards. What the fuck are we gonna do?
Okay.
I don't have any other. One more bets.
One more thought. No other thoughts on bets. I mean, 4-1 is staring at me to win the South. I don't think realistically, if they get into the playoffs, it's fair to expect that first time ever Richardson's going to be good enough in the playoffs to make noise in a very crowded AFC. They're probably a bet against in the playoffs at some point, like a la CJ Stroud in Baltimore this last year was. I would say that their regular season win total is probably fairly reasonable at 8.5 minus 109. I'd rather have a piece of them to win the South than I would play an alt over. I definitely want nothing to do with alt under. After Steichen got his team to the point they were last year with Gardner Minshew, I'm not doubting they're going to be able to find ways around injuries.
I have a fun one. And again, it's a little anti-correlation, but the FanDuel has these dumb specials that are just probably priced horrible. But Richardson and Taylor to both score 10 plus rushing touchdowns, plus 850.
Ooh. Whoa. That's kind of a fun reverse, inversely correlated one.
Yeah, obviously it takes away from each other, but if I've made dumber bets. Just thinking,
Well, you're getting a better price because of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor managed only 7 touchdowns last year, but he only started 7 games.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what are you going to be looking at in terms of making evaluations of Richardson to the good or the bad on your, what did you have? 5.5, 4.5. What are you going to be looking for in terms of performance that tells you need to upgrade or downgrade Richardson?
Just being availability is probably the biggest one. Like he has to play, obviously, but the biggest things are if he can elevate a receiver room that we're not super keen on. How he looks with Jonathan Taylor fully healthy and ready to go. Decision making, like what he brings as far as a runner, because I think that's something we're expecting to see more of this year. And just not making the rookie mistakes, because essentially he's still a rookie. He's got 10, 12 more games before we even get a full season under his belt. Mm-hmm. Just continuing to play smart. And I think Steichen is a big part of that. If he plays smart and we see improvement in, Downs and Mitchell, I think Pittman's going to be fine. If you get anything out of the tight end room, then it's like, shit, he's a big part of that. It's obviously a combination of the play calling, the game plan, and him. But for seeing him elevate some of these other players that we think are, middling to above average, it's going to be on quarterback play, because it always is.
That's reasonable. Okay, well, let's put a bow on it. Nice work. That was fun. Is home run derby ever?
No, it just started, man. I pulled up Twitter and there's a million tweets about
how bad
anthem.
The anthem.
Yeah, so I think the first thing
tripping balls or something.
I have no idea. I have to go find the anthem, obviously, as soon as I'm done with this. If you guys haven't yet, obviously go watch that. We'll check you on Wednesday. If you listen to this podcast on Wednesday morning, we'll do another live show tonight at 7 Eastern, going over the next 2 teams, which would be the Texans and the Jaguars. We'll see you guys then.
I've never heard of this Ingrid Andress person. Is a 4-time Grammy nominee? What?
Is she related to Ursula Andress? The original Bond girl.